Have you ever looked into the eyes of your Shih Tzu while eating and felt that sudden wave of guilt, that quiet, invisible tug that whispers, maybe just one bite won't hurt those round, soulful eyes, that gentle tilt of the head, the little whimper that sounds almost human? It's emotional blackmail in its purest, fluffiest form. But here's the hard truth that every Shih Tzu parent learns sooner or later: those tiny, adorable bodies aren't built like ours. What feels like a harmless crumb to you can turn into hours of sickness or something far worse for them. I learned that the painful way, on a night that began with laughter and ended in panic, with one stolen bite of chocolate cake. It happened so fast. One moment, Luna was dozing on the couch, and the next, she was standing on her back legs, nose deep in my dessert plate, tail wagging proudly, like she'd just conquered Mount Everest. I laughed for a second until I remembered what chocolate does to dogs. The laugh caught in my throat. I froze. Then came the frantic Googling, the rushed drive to the emergency vet, and the long, terrified hours in the waiting room while Luna was treated for theobromine poisoning. She survived, thank heaven, but that night changed everything. That was the moment I realized that love, real love, isn't just cuddles and treats. It's protection. It's learning to say no, even when every inch of you wants to say yes. After that, I became the kind of person who reads every ingredient label twice, who researches every snack like it's a medical decision, because for Luna, it is. I discovered how fragile the Shih Tzu's digestive system really is. How something as simple as a grape or a raisin can shut down their kidneys. How garlic, onions, even certain nuts can poison their blood. I learned that natural doesn't always mean safe. That some foods that help us thrive can quietly destroy them. It's a strange balance. Raising a dog so full of life, yet so vulnerable. So fearless, yet so easily hurt. But here's what makes it all worthwhile: that trust, that silent, a wordless faith that they place in you every time they eat from your hand. When Luna looks up at me, waiting for her meal, I see it, the belief that I'll never let her be harmed, that I'll always know what's best. And that responsibility is sacred. Because beneath all the playfulness, the barking, the mischief, there's something deeply human in their dependence, a fragile thread of love that binds our two worlds together. So today, I want to share what that lesson taught me. 10 foods your Shih Tzu should never, ever eat. Not even a bite. Not even just this, once. These are the things that seem harmless, but can turn deadly in a heartbeat. The foods that send too many little dogs like Luna to the vet each year. And as we go through each one, I'll tell you the stories behind them, the warnings, the close calls, the moments that every dog parent needs to hear, because if there's one thing I've learned from loving a Shih Tzu, it's this. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for them is to keep the treat in your hand. Smile through those pleading eyes and say softly, "No, my love, not this one." It all began with chocolate, that sweet, irresistible temptation that even I, a supposedly responsible adult, can never quite say no to. I remember that night clearly. I had just finished dinner, curled up on the couch with a warm brownie and a cup of tea, when I felt a familiar presence beside me. Luna, my little Shih Tzu shadow. She was sitting there, perfectly still, staring at the dessert in my hand with the kind of intensity that could melt steel. I laughed, reached for my cup, and in the 2 seconds my eyes left the plate, disaster struck. When I looked back, there she was, licking her lips and wagging her tail in triumph. A tiny crumb of chocolate smeared across her nose like evidence of her crime. For a brief, foolish moment, I thought it was cute. Then, like a flash of lightning, my brain caught up with my heart. Chocolate. The word hit me like a cold slap. I snatched up my phone, typed faster than I ever had before. Can dogs eat chocolate? The screen filled with warnings, words like toxic, fatal, theobromine poisoning. My stomach twisted. Within half an hour, Luna started to tremble. Her breathing quickened. Her eyes darted nervously. It felt like time collapsed into a blur of panic. The rush to the car, the sound of her tiny whimpers, the sterile smell of the vet's office. I can still remember how light she felt in my arms, and how heavy my heart was in my chest. The vet moved quickly, administering fluids, calming me down as much as the dog. "She'll be okay," he said gently. "But this little one doesn't get another taste of chocolate ever." That night, sitting beside her crate, as she finally slept, I made a silent promise. No more chances. No more. Just a lick. No. Dessert plate left unattended. Now. Every time I unwrap a chocolate bar, Luna trots up expectantly, tail wagging, and I hand her a carrot stick instead. She crunches it proudly, convinced she's winning. And I smile. Because in a way, she is. Then there's Garlic, the silent villain of the kitchen. It's strange how something that smells so comforting to us can be deadly to them. I used to cook with garlic in everything: soups, sauces, even tiny bits of homemade dog food I thought were healthy. I had read somewhere that garlic helped repel fleas, and it sounded so harmless. Even smart. I sprinkled just a touch into her food. I'm proud of myself for being such a thoughtful dog mom. For a while, everything seemed fine. But slowly, Luna began to tire more easily. She'd play for a few minutes, then lie down sooner than usual. Her gums looked paler. I thought maybe it was just the heat. It wasn't. A routine vet visit revealed mild anemia, and when I mentioned her diet, the vet's face changed. Garlic, even in small amounts, can damage a Shih Tzu's red blood cells, leading to something called hemolytic anemia, a slow, invisible poisoning. One clove might not harm a bigger dog, but for a 5-kilo Shih Tzu, it's like swallowing fire. I felt a sharp pang of guilt that stayed with me long after that appointment. Since then, I've become the label detective, reading every ingredient, side-eyeing every sauce, checking even the broth I pour into her kibble. Garlic hides everywhere: in gravies, in seasoning mixes, in leftovers that smell innocent but can spell danger. These days, when Luna curls up under the kitchen table, sniffing the air as I cook, I think about how fragile she really is beneath all that fur. Loving a Shih Tzu means loving carefully, knowing that protection sometimes looks like restraint. I may never share my brownies or garlic bread with her again. But in exchange, I've learned something deeper: that true care isn't just about giving them what they want. It's about keeping them safe from what they don't understand. And maybe that's the truest kind of love there is. Raisins and grapes were the first lesson that truly terrified me. They look so harmless, don't they? Tiny, sweet, and innocent. Like something that belongs in a child's lunchbox, not on a list of deadly foods. But one afternoon, while I was preparing a fruit bowl, I dropped a single raisin on the floor. It was just one. Before I could even bend down, Luna was already there, lightning fast, her little pink tongue darting toward it like treasure. I swear, My heart stopped. I reached out so quickly I nearly slipped, scooping it up just in time. That night, I found myself sitting on the kitchen floor with my laptop open, learning that even a few raisins can shut down a dog's kidneys. No gradual symptoms. No clear warning, just vomiting, fatigue, and sometimes silence. I stared at that single raisin in my hand, horrified by how close we'd come to disaster. It's a strange feeling when you realize something so tiny could destroy something you love so completely. Since then, I never let fruit bowls sit low on the table. Grapes, raisins, anything remotely risky, all of it stays out of reach. And whenever Luna trots around the kitchen, tail wagging, hoping for a taste of what I'm cutting, I hand her a slice of apple instead. Safe, crunchy, and full of life, unlike those dark little drops of danger. Then came the mystery of coconut and its overhyped cousin, coconut oil. The internet swore by it. It's natural, it's good for dogs' coats, and for a while, I believed it. I even mixed a tiny bit into Luna's food once, thinking I was doing her a favor. The result: a miserable night of bloating, stomach grumbles, and a pitiful face that made me feel like the worst mother in the world. Later, I learned that while coconut itself isn't inherently toxic, it's too rich for tiny bodies like hers. The milk and oil upset their stomachs. And coconut water, high in potassium. I can even mess with their heart rhythm. It made me realize that natural doesn't always mean safe. Nature still needs boundaries, especially when the one you love weighs less than a bag of sugar. And finally, there's raw bread dough, soft, squishy, and deceptively innocent. It looks so harmless sitting in a bowl, rising quietly under a towel. But once inside a dog's warm stomach, the yeast keeps working, expanding like a balloon, releasing gas and alcohol. The pain it causes is unimaginable, bloating so severe it can literally twist their insides. Every time I bake, Luna is right there beside me, her little nose twitching with curiosity, sniffing the air filled with the sweet smell of rising dough. I let her watch. Sometimes even end up with flour dusted across her fur, like a tiny baker's apprentice. But I keep the dough out of reach. Always. Because I know that while it might look soft and harmless, it hides a silent threat. She's better off with a nose full of flour than a belly full of poison. Looking back, I realize how sneaky danger can be when it comes to dogs like Luna. It often comes disguised as sweetness, as health, as something natural. The truth is, caring for a Shih Tzu is like caring for a child who doesn't understand what could hurt them. And maybe that's what love is, standing guard quietly, every single day, between curiosity and danger, between temptation and harm, between the world and the tiny heartbeat that trusts you to keep it safe. Wild mushrooms were the first real scare that didn't start in my kitchen. It happened one morning after a night of rain. The garden was still damp, glistening with dew, and Luna was darting about, nose pressed to the ground like a tiny explorer on a mission. I was sipping my coffee when I noticed her chewing something small, brown, and suspiciously soft. My heart froze. I rushed over, pried open her mouth, and there it was, a piece of mushroom, soggy and unfamiliar. I didn't wait. Within minutes, I was on the phone with the vet, my hands shaking, Luna whining softly, confused by all the commotion. Wild mushrooms, I later learned, are like silent assassins, some completely harmless, others deadly within hours. The problem is, you never really know which is which. Certain kinds attack the liver, others go for the nervous system. And the scariest part is that symptoms often appear too late. That morning, Luna got lucky. She hadn't swallowed enough to harm her. But the vet's warning still echoes in my mind. One bite can be enough. Now, after every rainfall, I walk the garden like a sentry, scanning for any unfamiliar shapes rising from the soil. Luna trots beside me, tail wagging, unaware that our little ritual is born of fear and love. I pull up every strange mushroom I find, because I know curiosity, in her case, can be fatal. Then there are cherries, the deceptive little jewels of summer. They look innocent, bright, and cheerful. But those glossy red fruits hide a secret cyanide in their pits. The danger isn't in the soft flesh that we love, but in that hard, tiny core that dogs, especially small ones like Shih Tzus, might easily crush or swallow whole. I used to think removing the stems was enough, until I learned that even a cracked pit could release toxins. Once, at a picnic, Luna darted toward a fallen cherry before I could stop her. It didn't matter that it was half-eaten. My mind flashed through every worst-case scenario in an instant. She was fine. Thankfully, but that moment burned the lesson into me forever. Since then, I've made peace with the idea that not every treat needs sharing. Some sweetness is better left untouched. Tomatoes and potatoes. On the other hand, I are the tricksters of the pantry. Sometimes friends, sometimes foes. Ripe, red, and cooked perfectly fine in moderation. But the green parts, the stems, leaves, or unripe skins, hidasolanina. A toxin as cruel as its name sounds. It can trigger weakness, tremors, and heart irregularities in dogs. And Shih Tzus, with their small frames, are especially vulnerable. These days, my kitchen feels less like a home and more like a laboratory. Every cutting board becomes a workspace for caution. Every ingredient double-checked before it leaves the knife. Luna usually sits on the floor beside me, watching, waiting, her nose twitching as the smell of roasted potatoes fills the air. She doesn't know that every no I say is a tiny act of protection, a small love letter in disguise. And then, there's the quiet danger of fat trimmings, those greasy, glistening edges of bacon or steak that look like heaven on a plate, but spell trouble for a Shih Tzu's pancreas. It's the invisible kind of harm, the one that doesn't show right away. A bit of fat here, a leftover piece there, and suddenly, their tiny bodies are battling pancreatitis, a slow, burning pain they can't explain. I used to feel guilty for throwing away scraps that smelled so tempting to her. Now, I do it with conviction. I've learned that saying no is an act of love, even when her eyes say please. And finally, cat food, the one that sounds almost laughable, until you realize how common the mistake is. I made it once, during a late night, when her kibble bag ran out and the store was closed. Just for tonight, I thought. Scooping from my neighbor's cat bowl, Luna devoured it like it was gourmet cuisine, tail wagging with delight. I thought I'd found a clever hack until the vet explained that cat food, rich in fat and protein, is far too heavy for a dog's system. Over time, it strains their liver, pancreas, and kidneys, slowly poisoning them with excess. It's a strange feeling, knowing something so loved can harm so deeply. Now, each of these lessons lives in my hands, hands that cook, clean, and guard. Because loving a Shih Tzu like Luna means learning that danger often wears the sweetest disguises of fruit, a leftover, a bowl meant for someone else, and somewhere between no and not tonight, you realize that love isn't just feeding, it's protecting. It's watching her play safely under the sun, knowing that everything you've kept her from has allowed her to keep shining. One healthy, happy heartbeat at a time. Living with a Shih Tzu is like living with a small, furry heart that beats outside your body. You learn that love isn't always soft and easy. It's careful, deliberate, and sometimes full of rules. It's the way you push the chocolate plate a little farther from the edge. The way you scan the floor for a dropped grape. The way you whisper no, even when those eyes look up at you with the innocence of trust. It's not because you want to say no, it's because you've learned that protecting them is another way of loving them. When I look at Luna now, her fur glistening under the afternoon light, her tail gently swaying as she naps beside me, I realize that every small act of caution has led to this peace. She's healthy, happy, and safe. And in that stillness, I find something I didn't expect: gratitude. Gratitude for the mistakes that taught me, for the nights spent worrying that made me wiser, for the unspoken bond between us that grows with every meal I prepare. So the next time your Shih Tzu looks at you from under the table, begging for a bite of whatever's in your hand, we remember this: not sharing that piece of chocolate, not slipping them that salty fry, not giving in to that pleading face. That's love too. It's the kind of love that lasts longer than any treat. The kind that keeps their hearts strong and their tails wagging for years to come. Because in the end, our dogs don't measure our love by what we give them to eat. They feel it in how we keep them safe, how we stay patient, how we let our care outshine their curiosity. And that, truly, is the sweetest thing you'll ever give them.